Well, thank you so much for asking. Of course I do. How about an over $40 million digital experience that absolutely never saw the light of day? Which ended in a very dramatic lawsuit, some PR wars, and some legal skirmishes. So in 2016, Hertz realizes that it's archaic behind all of the other digital consumer platforms in the rental car market. Not sure why it took them so long to realize that, but they wanted to go through a digital transformation that focused on websites and mobile apps for the most part. They had a pre-existing consulting agreement from 2004 with Accenture. See this all the time, huge mistake. And they engage in assisting to essentially validate their strategy and planning the project. And I'm going to spend just a minute on this point because it's so incredibly important and it happens all the time. So Accenture wins the business, right? Which means that they don't have to renegotiate terms. They don't have to onboard a new vendor. And from an executive sponsor standpoint, this looks really good, right? Because they have known vendor knowledge. They have agreed commercial terms. Like all of that boring stuff is done so we can just spin up a couple of SOWs. The issue, right, is that 2004 agreement that they had with Accenture had this really broad limitation of liability clause, which Hertz then wanted to sue them for after this failed program. They chose Accenture over IBM in this one-day polished presentation that felt like they had a relationship and a speed win at the same time. So around August to November of 2016, they start phase one of this agreement, which Accenture does the upfront strategy work, the architecture and planning that tracks for the build of these new mobile experiences. And this is when they start to outsource, like, yeah, I mean, you're Accenture, whatever looks good, that's why we're bringing you guys on as the experts, which a lot of people do in these situations, but that's how cracks and misalignments start to form. So fast forward to January of 2017, Hertz is already signing a phase two agreement way too fast, right? Why do we need to sign a new agreement within 6 months where Accenture now owns the entire design, the build, the deployment of the new site? And they're like, no problem. We'll handle this for you. And it will go live in 2017 in December. You guys don't even need to worry about it. So as a reminder, when you have an agreement like this, you're already paying towards the SOW. So at this point, millions are committed, right? But nothing has been delivered. And we've already been working on this project for a year. And now in September of 2017, Accenture's like, listen, we've got some issues on the front end, and tells Hertz it can't meet that December of 2017 go live, but don't worry, we'll get there by January. And probably spinning something like it's better for the first of the year anyway. Late 2017, early 2018, and this is where the schedule continues to slip and the drama unfolds. The relationship is breaking down. So Accenture is like, hey, don't worry. None of these delay costs will be passed on to you because Hertz is only $1 billion company, right? This is a lot of money, and they're nervous about it. So in early 2018, the go live date is pushed again to April of 2018. During this window is when we start to see the classic line of them wanting to do change orders to make more money by saying, you didn't really give us that information in the original requirements. Wow, the SOW said fully responsive across device. And Accenture's over here being like, we didn't really know that proper tablet layout meant fully responsive. And it's like, okay, well then what did you think fully responsive meant? They're monetizing their own oversights in this by saying it's going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars more to make this look how you want it to look on a tablet. I know you're shocked, but April 2018 comes around and the go live date comes and goes without anything production ready on the website or mobile apps. At this point, Hertz has paid Accenture $32 million in fees and expenses for the project, yet still has no functional site or apps in production. Like, what are you doing? Make it make sense. Just like these other stories, Hertz says, you didn't actually know how to do this. And this isn't me saying this is their complaint, right? That says, we hired you for skills that you did not have in-house, and you actually couldn't do the work, and you didn't tell us. Next April 2019, Hertz officially files a federal lawsuit against Accenture in the Southern District of New York, seeking at least $32 million, alleging breach of contract, deceptive practices, and failure to deliver. At this point, Hertz has now brought on a new technology partner and had to trash large chunks of Accenture's work. It's not funny. Oh my gosh, it's terrible. What a meltdown. While Accenture stood on, we did what we said we were going to do in the contract, and sorry, that's what you get. In May of 2019, Accenture says that, well, we're going to move to dismiss the claims because it asserts that it was still owed past due invoices, like the audacity, and publicly calling the allegations without merit. June of 2019, Hertz doubles down. They're like, absolutely not. This is unfair practices, and you guys lost us millions of dollars. Then the trial is scheduled for 2020. So what happened? So it's kind of complicated, but what mainly happened is the judge threw out some of Hertz's claims, specifically Florida Deceptive and Unfair Trade Act claim, which said, you should be protected under this claim, that he threw out. But they kept the main breach of contract, and they ultimately settled, which likely they settled. We don't even know from court filings what actually happened, but that got so much bad PR for Accenture that likely they wanted to consider settling in some other way, but we don't know. Okay, so most importantly, what can we learn from this? So first of all, outsourcing ownership of anything, giving the keys away, as I always say, is the biggest way to start to have that conversation of like, I thought this, but you thought this, but I've already paid you millions of dollars. Never do that. Even if you don't have the in-house capabilities, don't think that just because you hired an expert, that it's going to be a good investment. Number two is existing paper is not always your friend. All right. Just because you have an existing agreement, we get it, right? We all hate going through RFPs and procurement and all of those different things. But in order to make a multi-million-dollar investment make sense, you need to go through all of those processes to effectively vet so that you know that your contracts, even with an existing vendor, are up to date and you're protected. Still on that contract thread, turn those non-negotiables for this. It should have been like device support, security, performance, accessibility, all of those different things into very explicit deliverables and testable requirements in those contracts. You cannot just have that vague language of digital experience. Like, what does that mean? A big brand does not mean a competent project team, right? And a one-day polished presentation for a multi-million-dollar investment is just negligence on the business part. Who is my delivery team? Are they over the age of 18? Have they been out of college for more than 6 months? Not bashing young professionals, but if I'm spending $40 million, I want a seasoned senior person. You must have that independent quality assurance as your insurance policy when you're working with these big vendors, right? That their business model is to continue to get that change order to charge you more and more and more. This is what happens when you trust a brand on the hood and never take a look at the engine.